But what I've really learned in this whole thing is how much we've been lied to in medicine, and it's not by
Amen.
accident. In fact, you know how there's a Sun Tzu art of war, and I've realized I can't find an equivalent art of biological warfare. I think I'm going to develop that. But the first rule is if proven science has been, or if science in general, if the scientific data out there that you could read and digest and think about is being systematically ignored, that's a program working in the background. And I would just say that I've gone way back and looked at that, and I found that for many things, I mean, they're wrong about so many things. It cannot be by accident. You know, even the blind hog gets the acorn once in a while. And the Institute of Medicine and our profound medical leaders just never seem to. And the other thing I discovered in this whole historical bent is that people say, well, if I don't see it in a peer-reviewed journal, I'm not going to believe it. Well, let me just tell you guys, the peer-reviewed journals are owned by the intelligence service. All of them that I can find. Except for the Journal of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons is not allowed to be in PubMed because they claim that we're substandard and we're not peer-reviewed. Well, we do have peer review, but the problem is that it doesn't meet their worldview. You know, we would say things like maybe statins don't work or they're bad for you, but we would give both sides to the argument, and they don't do that. And I will just say that if people don't believe me, all they have to do is look up Pergamon Press, because after World War II, the two guys, there were, just after the war, apparently, Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, and Charles Galton Darwin, Galton, the eugenicist, his uncle, and he's the grandson of Charles Darwin. They got together and they went to the British government and they said, we really think we needed better scientific publishing because we got kind of blindsided about what the Germans and Japanese were doing. And so we'd like to have better. And the British government said, no problem. They said, we can do that. We can get you better scientific publishing. How much do you want? And the reason they could say that is at that time, the biggest English publishing house for science and medicine, which was Butterworth's, it was owned by the British government, and not the all British government. It was MI6, the spy agency, right? And then when they because they'd won the war, they had German publishing houses, and they got with Springer, and they combined it, and they made it into the world's largest medical and scientific publishing house, multi-language and everything. And they hired as their first editor, not an editor, not a scientist. They hired Robert Maxwell. Now, Robert Maxwell, who's that? He worked for the British intelligence agency because he was fluent in German, and he was interviewing prisoners in Germany after the war. He was fluent in Russian. So we think he's probably a KGB agent. Pretty sure he'd have one-on-ones with Brezhnev. He's got to be a Mossad agent because he's buried on the Mount of Olives, and we know he's a CIA agent because his daughter is Ghislaine Maxwell, the pedophile consort of pedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
I was just typing that in to look it up. I'm pretty sure that was her dad.
We know that's a CIA thing. So this guy's an uber spy. Why would you put that guy in charge of their biggest medical and scientific publishing house? Because we want to change belief about the world. We want to run a program against the population to convince them of things. And it's been very effective. In fact, it goes far before World War II. It goes, and at least, it's probably thousands of years, but at least it goes back to Edward Jenner and the smallpox vaccine. But it's been around for a long time that they've been waging war against humanity to keep us in balance. They're not too many, not too small. They want the number of people to be their definition, right? And this goes back to Plato's Republic. He actually says this in his book on marriage. So, yeah, it's a crazy world that I didn't expect.